What's up?
Really, the first victory today is just that the technology works. I'm very happy to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Yes, sir. How
Good.
are you? Nice to see you.
Oh man, I'm fantastic.
And did I just see your
Yeah,
daughter got married? Is that what I saw in your Instagram
my
story?
daughter got married last night. My youngest. Just I couldn't be happier right now. I mean, I could maybe I don't know. How could I be happier?
Now, of course,
Myself.
this topic of kata, I'm wondering, did the wedding have a rehearsal? Was there no kata preparation to walk down the aisle and where you're going to stand? Was there not a kata for the wedding?
Yeah. So if there okay, so if like we had to like do something really obscure and that had nothing to do with the wedding before the wedding, like maybe we had to go run on the beach and then we had to do some jumping jacks, then we had to exchange candy bars instead of the ring, and then say, well, if you go to bunkai and this relates the candy bar relates to the rings, so let's just practice that and pretend and then say that it has something. That's what kata would be to me.
So you don't think like if you have like a little flower girl or someone throwing out rose petals, when you go to the rehearsal, you might say, "Okay, dear, we don't have roses right now. That's too expensive. But we have these pieces of crepe paper, or we'll just pretend. Let's pretend like we're throwing out rose petals. Make sure you go this way. Make sure you go that way." So that on the day of the wedding, she understands. Okay, I already did this part. There might be some part of this that's new, but most of it is familiar, and therefore it's a good ceremony. No?
That would be fantastic, and that's called we call that drilling, and we actually do that when the fight or the practice simulates the fight to the T, because you have to practice it to the T because everything has to be just right. But if we went out and told them to close their eyes and go upside down and backwards and throw it all over, but then in the actual ceremony we wanted to throw it a specific way, and then they say, well, why are we practicing stuff that has nothing to do with the ceremony? And then we'll say, you're not supposed to understand that because you're not smart enough. But we're going to tell you right now, we call it bunkai, and that means that this, when you throw it like this, it relates to this. It's just different because it looks kind of weird and it looks more ominous. So we can sell more memberships by
Oh
saying
man.
that that's the actual throwing the thing. But then when they go out, what if they start throwing it like that and they do the wrong thing? You go, no, you're supposed to throw it like this. Well, you had us practicing like that. And you go, oh, you're supposed to have the philosophy down, and it's bunkai. It's not supposed to relate. We make up this stuff because it looks better, and then we can sell more memberships. And then we act like, I don't know, is that better scenario? This is what I think. I think the problem I have is first of all, I love kata. You know I love kata.
Oh, clearly,
No,
you
I
tell
love
me.
kata. I love to watch kata. I love pop locking and breakdancing too, but neither belongs in a curriculum of martial arts. They're really
Okay.
fun to watch. They're good workouts, but they don't really have a place in the word martial art, which means warlike art. So it should get you ready for somebody attacking you. I think it doesn't belong there. But if you want to do it as an add-on and have some fun and teach the kids some like dance moves, then you throw it in there. Don't forget, I did katas all the way from white belt to black belt. And
Yeah.
whenever I would complain to my instructor, he would say, I'm going to quote him, shut the up. Just keep doing them until you get your black belt. Now, this is him telling a 10-year-old kid that. I'm like, hey, Chief, why am I doing this move right here? What does that have to do with anything? He goes, shut the up and just keep doing it. When you get your black belt, you can take them out. Right now, just memorize this baloney and then practice it day and night. But anyway.
Now hold on.
Where is the benefit of a kata?
I can't even write down my counterpoints fast enough. You're doing a great job here, sir. Now hold on. Just hold on a damn picking minute. I would say if you have a hammer and you use the wrong end of the hammer, because that's how your dad showed you to use the hammer backwards, and then you say this hammer sucks and you get rid of it because it doesn't work, it's not the hammer's fault. It's your dad or whoever told you, or your intuition that told you to use that hammer backwards. That's just not good coaching. So right. I know you love your teachers, and I have all respect for that. And 10-year-old, maybe you had some attitude. I don't know. I can't speak for that. But I would say anybody who comes out so strongly against the kata maybe didn't have the coaching that made it seem practical and seem like it actually is martial. And because I know, I've heard you speak many times, and I always enjoy it. And, so if someone tells you, yeah, this is a double punch, but that's like saying, here, use the back of the hammer. That's not a double punch. If someone told you, oh, you get more power punching from your hip, and that's what your coach told you, that's just bad coaching. But the mistake would be to say, well, that's not a good reason, so I'm not doing that, I'm doing this. But then it's not fair to attack the technique that it was. If that was a grappling technique, you might say, well, yeah, that's a good technique. Oh, I know. Hang on. You use the word curriculum. You have a curriculum at the pit, right?
Yeah.
You could take each one of those moves and you could drill each one of those moves. You might say, hey, here's a double leg, here's a single leg, here's a left hook. And you drill it. It could be a theme for a month. You drill it, you drill it, you drill it. So couldn't you, Sensei John Hackleman, the pit master himself, couldn't you take your curriculum and just do each move one time, string it together, and then throw away the paper, because you would have a kata representing everything that you believe in, every technique you believe in, and that would be the pit kata?
No.
No?
I'll tell you why. Okay, here's a couple reasons. Number one, a fight right now. I was going to throw in politics. I'm not going to. Okay, a fight right now is so fluid that I don't want to choreograph or memorize things. I don't want the head. It's called Hicks' law. And when you start memorizing stuff, too many stuff, when you have an impetus that you have to, you have somebody attacks you, right? Then you have to think really quick, like that quick. And if you're thinking all these techniques, it's not as natural. So I don't put them together in a lineage, because they don't belong together. Like, I'm not going to do a jump spinning back kick and then do a body lock. Or I'm not going to do a whipping roundhouse kick and then a front kick, because they don't go together. So I'm not going to practice them together. I practice each one individually, and then I put them with somebody that's doing that one technique. I don't like to put more than 3 techniques together, lined up together to be memorized, because the fight might take a turn after your second technique. So I don't like to put them together. And then another thing is, why would this ever be in a curriculum? Why would this stance, or why would your hand ever be here when you're sparring? And I see that all the time when guys keep their hands here, because it's a natural thing. Why would they drill things from here when their hands should always be up? So I don't like to confuse my guys with that.
Okay, well, there's a couple different things there. So now my older brain's having a hard time keeping up with them. So first of all, you do believe in short kata, because you'll put 3 moves together as a combo.
But that's not a kata, because the kata has to have because I could shadow box and people go, well, see, you're doing katas. That's your kata. No, but katas have specific rigid rules they have to go by. So let's include the rules.
Wait a minute, who said that kata have rigid rules that you have?
Then let's just say nothing is kata. So let's keep our hands up. Everything we do to practice, let's just do it. And let's never stand in a stance that makes no sense, or drop our hands over here with, you know what I mean? So the kata, if you enter a tournament, or if you're in a school and you tell your instructor, okay, well, say it has to be this, and this. but then you did it your own way, and it flowed better, it looked better. Would you still promote the guy if he didn't do it just like he was supposed to?
Well, that's different. That's like saying, hey, I taught you how to do a double leg, and you decided not to change levels, and you keep trying to bear hug the guy. Would you pass that guy? No, because he didn't.
If he ended up on the ground, I would.
Fair enough. That's a technique question.
Right.
We were talking about the rigid rules of kata, and I'm suggesting that one of the rigid rules that maybe I'm asking, you're thinking of, is that, oh, a kata has to be performed from beginning to end. That's what the kata is for. And I'm suggesting, no, a kata is a list of drills. It's an unwritten curriculum, but it's written with the body. So the people I know who get the most out of kata will say, okay, yeah, I know this kata. Let's say it's got 20 moves in it. This month, I'm really focusing on the first move. What's this move? Does it mean something? Is it a choke? Is it a leg takedown? What is it? And now I can practice that technique on the bag with a partner. That's the gold standard. And then when I go back to the kata, going over my curriculum, like, okay, what's my art? Okay, I like this kind of leg sweep. Great. Okay, now the kata usually stop. A lot of the kata, the traditional kata, you do a move and you stop. Obviously, a fight, you don't stop. So this is not a real fight. That shows that it's kind of just a list. Like, here's the first technique that we like in this art. That's a leg sweep. Okay, you want to go drill that? Go drill that. The next move, if you feel like you got that, here's the next move. This is a choke. Okay, great. That's a choke. So it's up to you. Again, it's either bad coaching or just odd practitioner who would misunderstand, like, oh, the kata is a fight? No. The kata is literal, every single move that you make, as opposed to being a free-flowing concept, like a double leg. Yeah, maybe you can go higher or lower depending on the guy's build and how you set it up. Maybe. But that's part of the exploration of the kata. So one, I would say the rigid rule of you have to practice from beginning to end as if it's one technique. That's not true. I think that's bad coaching. It's just a list of drills. And two, to think that the kata never changes would also be a rigid myth. That's a myth. Because anybody, it's just like you with your hook. You have, dare I say, the best left hook in the business. And yet you can find, I can't remember your last video, 20 different hooks. By tons of repetition, by tons of experimentation, you might just say, yeah, that's a left hook. But you know all the intricacies and changes, and over the years you've developed subtlety and nuance in that thing. So it's always kind of a new and a living technique. And that's the same for any kata. It's not supposed to be, oh, it's always exactly the same when I learned it 10 years ago. The guys I know who are the best at their kata and get the most out of that kind of training, it's always like, yeah, but I found this different weight shift because when I practice with a partner, that arm bar, if I'm thinking about an arm bar when I do this move, the shifting in my weight has to be different. I need more torso instead of foot. I need more foot instead of... So the live practice goes hand in hand with drilling with partners, and then the kata itself is just, again, it's a very living, organic, something bunkai means break down. That's what bunkai means. Bunkai means you're taking that long thing and you're breaking it down to one of the moves, maybe even one motion within that move. Oh, it's this part. Well, what is that? Well, I'm parrying. Oh, I'm hitting the fist. That depends on you now. That's a technique question, not a technology question. So I'm just arguing first for the technology of the kata. It's repetition, it's drill, it's a list of ideas. Now, which ideas you want to interpret and say, well, that's a crane beak. I know you're not a fan of that. But whatever it is, it could be other things. And that's up to you and your art and your experimentation to put value into. So does any of that rambling make any sense?
I mean, and I get this a lot with people. Like, okay, so if you enter a tournament, there's rules to go to your kata. If you're going from belt to belt, there's usually rules. So if you just went up there and started shadowboxing and working some of the drills fluid with your hands always up, you're never in a stupid stance. I mean, that's one big thing in that I have. Like, I just watched the Olympics. They had kata in karate, and it was the most just obscure bunch of movements that had nothing to do with anything martial at all. So I had a problem with it.
Yeah.
What?
Well, what in your eyes, of course, because you haven't put the time into interpreting those movements to make them something real, you see it as something separate from what you do, as opposed to looking for the commonalities to say, oh, I see what that is. Like, for instance, like right off the bat, if you took, look at any of the kata, because you said now a couple of times about putting the hands up or putting the hands down. I don't know anybody who wouldn't say that putting your hands up is a good idea. Everybody knows that. In fact, it's so well known, I think that's why it's not in the kata, because obviously, I don't think there is a punch to the face in any kata because it's so obvious. You don't need to have in secrecy for hundreds of years, like, don't tell anybody, punch somebody in the nose. That's in a kata. No. So if you look at wrestling, and you just look at one person's side of a wrestling match, you'll see hands up, hands down, hands all over the place, which is what a kata looks like, because a kata isn't just kickboxing frozen with, oh, that's a block. No, it's not. Oh, that's blocking a kick. No, it's not. And the inventors of these kata, I would posit, know that damn well. This is really more entanglements, clinches, takedowns, breaks, chokes, these kinds of techniques. If you're looking to kata for kickboxing, then you're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, which I'm not. I'm just looking for realistic techniques that can be used in a fight. And my problem with it is no problem with it in and of itself. But when you're teaching these kids and then trying to confuse them with the word bunkai when they have enough trouble just trying to learn anything, I'm not saying you. I'm saying what?
Right.
No,
you're not.
I'm saying the guy that teaches the kata. Okay. So they're telling these kids, well, this has something to do with something, and they have to rehearse it and practice it and memorize it, and then by the time they get their belt, that's a part of their curriculum, which it shouldn't be. And then they have to learn these techniques, and then it takes away, because most people don't have that much time, so their time is really fixed, and they only have a little bit of time to learn the most bang for their buck, the most effective techniques they can learn in that hour twice a week or whatever. So to spend time memorizing different movements that really have nothing to do with anything, and then telling them, well, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but if you think really hard, the hand that stays here, which never should be there, we're going to keep it there for a while because we're grabbing. So we're going to keep it here, and then if somebody hits you a left hook, oh, they're not going to do that. You just bring it up real quick and do a block. And then you step over this way with a long stance, which makes no sense, but stay there anyway. And then you memorize all these techniques, and you have to memorize them, or you don't get your next belt. So I think katas, it could be fun to do as a warm-up, and there's some shadow boxing in there as long as your hands stay up. But to make it where you have to memorize in order, which has nothing to do with any fight ever, because every fight is so different. So you have to memorize these techniques. They have to be in order, and they have to go face this way, and then you have to face this way, and then, which makes no sense. And if you don't get it, you don't get your next belt. That's what I have a problem with.
Well, yeah, it sounds, I mean, from what I'm hearing, I actually think we agree 100% on everything. So I'm going to start with that. I think we agree that bad coaches suck, then you shouldn't be practicing techniques that don't work in your experience with your partner, with some pressure training. You absolutely should be testing what you're doing, and that you should be making the most of every minute of your training time so that you're getting the most bang for your buck. So like you just said, if you come to class, and let's say you can only come to class twice, 3 times a week. For me, that's the goal where you need a partner. You have a coach that says, okay, here's a move. Here's an arm drag to taking the back. Great, universally loved technique. Arm drag, hands aren't up here, by the way, hands down here. Oh, I'm dragging through that arm. Oh, I'm taking the back. Oh, hands aren't up right now, by the way. Now you've got a technique that if you have a kata, like I'm suggesting for the pit, if you go through your curriculum and string together your curriculum, now the kid can go home and go, okay, what do we do today? Arm drag, take the back, pick them up, put them down. Now this looks like just some silly move. What is this? What is all this crap? Well, no, I just felt this on Monday. It's an arm drag, take the bag, put pressure on, tip the guy. Great, you use your foot, break down his leg to make him fall. Now that's a legit technique, I think. And then on Wednesday, you come back and say, have you been practicing your technique? You go, yep, I've been visualizing it. Studies show visualization is almost the same as real thing. So now you've got something realistic that you've been rehearsing. So now your live practice and your solo practice really mesh, which is the same for any drill, whether you're hitting left hooks, you've got a grappling dummy, or anything else. Kata is just a way of going through your list of techniques. So
if you watch the Olympics or you watch 99% of traditional martial arts schools, that's not what a kata is going to be. But you can say now, it's just shadow boxing, and then you put things together in a shadow boxing. I don't know. I don't think you should have to memorize them. So you just shadow box, and then watch anybody shadow box, and then say, "There's your kata." So we can say it's a kata and make anything we want a kata, but that's not the katas that I see at different schools during the Olympics. It was crazy moves that I was watching each move. I go, how would that? I kind of know fighting, and how would that move ever relate? And then I think that has nothing. That has to do with the aesthetics of it, because they want it to look good, and they and then they do the they want to yeah. It's kind of like a dance. Like you hit a move, and that's not the way a fight is, but it's the way a cut is. But so you're just saying. So we're agreeing we should shadow box, yes. We should drill, yes. We shouldn't crowd our students' minds with all kind of memorizing any kind of order of all these techniques. We shouldn't do that. So just flow with drilling. So I think we're agreeing that the old katas should be thrown away, and everybody should just shadow box, and then we should have a good time training. I think we agree on that.
Most of that. You slipped one little bit of pork into that bill. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I want to live, you want to live. I want anybody that I dare call myself a teacher of to live. So I absolutely agree. I don't want anyone's head filled with nonsense. I don't want anything that I haven't felt myself and see, like, yeah, that could work. And I agree. I'm not a fan of the Olympics. Whatever someone wants to do with their time and their training, fantastic. But to me, the test would be, Sensei, to find one of those Olympic competitors, the people who competed in the kata, and say, come over here. If you'll allow me, I'll pay for your time, whatever. Let me see the first move of that first kata that you did for competition. And they go, ah, and they do their move. What are you thinking of when you do that move? Now, if they say, well, I'm really trying to show the judges my intensity, then you go, okay, I'm not interested in that. If they say, well, I really want to show that I have this traditional looking form like the old photos used to have, not interested in that. But if they tell me, well, what I'm thinking of is I just hit them low so they bend over and I've wrapped up their head like into a guillotine and I'm popping their neck, then I go, well, that's interesting. Let me see how you did that again in the air. Great, now do that on me. Okay, that feels legit. What's the next move in your kata? Now I've got a way to kind of test, like, what kind of kata practitioner are you? Are you just, I want to look good and show off my balance and my flexibility and my spirit? Or am I using this for practical nuts and bolt mechanics of fighting techniques? And I think that we would agree on. I mean, I'm interested in that part of it. Maybe not everyone is, and that's fine. Just know what you're doing. Be honest about what you're teaching and what you're practicing, and then I got no problem with it.
Well, then we agree on it then. Oh, my God. But, yeah, my biggest problem is putting their hands in places and their feet in places, stances that are just completely stupid. I think that's crazy. I think blocking instead of parrying is going to get people hurt. I think memorizing, a set of movements is going to be problematic. But you could say what's a set, but I could just say common sense. I mean, in boxing, MMA, kickboxing, any kind of combat sport, you're not saying 1, 2, hook, weave, hook, move this way, blah, 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 20 moves. It's usually set up in short little spurts of techniques that we call combinations or flurries, and then we combine them. But we never have to memorize more than 3 or 4 in a row, because then we start memorizing stuff, and a fight isn't that way, because the fight is always changing. But it's coming from different angles, so we can't prepare. We can't practice a bunch of moves, and just try to memorize them. That clouds your mind. So I feel like that part of kata, where you have to memorize any kind of set of movements, that's my number one problem. My second biggest problem is any kind of stance, which is just it has no place in a real fight, and even worse than that, it could get you hurt. So I think your hands, no matter what kind of kata you're doing, your hands should always reset to your cheekbones. And I think your chin should always be down. You should always be in a fighting stance, right? Whether you defend a takedown, take a takedown, it should always start from a fighting stance. And I don't see those kind of katas in any school that I go to or any kata that I see anywhere. So I don't have a problem with that. If we can call that a kata, that would be great. I call it shadowboxing or drilling, and that's great. But once you start moving things and then disguising it with the word bunkai, when you disguise it with the word bunkai, to me it's rubbish. Then it's just, you can't even believe anymore what's really going on. Because I feel like, yeah, you say if you look like you're doing a takedown, what are you doing? Well, I'm grabbing his legs, I'm taking him down. That's not the bunkai I'm talking about. I'm talking when you get a stance and this hand is here and this hand is here, and then you say, what's that? Well, in reality, I might move back a little, and then I'm going to come back in with a beak and hit him in the eye, and then this hand right here, I'm going to spear him in the, that's what I have a problem with.
Well, and again, I think that would be bad coaching or bad information.
Or every other school out there.
Well, if that offends some people, it's going to offend some people. Again, I don't see kata as kickboxing. So the idea that you're always at these long ranges and doing things with your hand, and this one's just ornate or counterbalancing, I don't believe in those interpretations. Those aren't my bunkai. I should put it that way. If there are people who make that work and that makes value in your practice, then it's good for you. For me, the kata, almost every traditional kata that I've ever practiced or looked at, I always envision is body to body. Your hands are already on the guy. So if you're lifting up someone's leg and you're dumping their head, then your hands are going to be in all kinds of different positions. And I would bet that if you videotaped yourself and just having a workout with someone, takedowns, ground, get up, the whole fight, multiple attackers, add anything you want, and just watch what you do, you'll see your hands in all kinds of places as you're carrying out certain techniques, throwing this guy into a wall, bending this guy over, hitting him on the back of the head, kneeing him up, bringing him down. I mean, your hands and your body and your levels and your stances are going to change because, again, if you're only looking at kata as some kind of kickboxing textbook, then, of course, you're going to get there's no value for that.
I don't know where kickboxing comes because mine has nothing to do with kickboxing. Mine has to do with realistic fighting.
Well, no, if you're only looking at hand positions from a distance that we're trying to punch and kick each other, well, this is not what I'm seeing. This could be somebody's head already, and this could be somebody's leg. This could be holding someone's hair, and this could be holding someone's leg. Then it makes total sense what I'm thinking about if you ask. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's now it makes sense because the range is different. Now the bunkai makes sense because you broke it down to an actual technique. And I would offer this little bit of history that I'm aware of, that in the old days, and especially how do you teach your kids? That's the proof. You teach technique first. You go, look, man, someone's trying to grab you here, you do this. Then if you want to go practice that, then you go home and you practice that in the air or on a bag or something. And then over time, because karate got put into the school system and they wanted to assure the parents and the government that everything's safe and cool, they stopped teaching the technique and they said, well, here's the move. And this opened up the door to the bad coaching and the delusions and the wrong-headedness because they couldn't tell you what the technique was. Then they were forgotten, but they were still practicing motions, but they forgot what it was. And if you're just looking at motions, it becomes, oh, well, I guess you're just trying to punch and kick in weird ways. But it was never supposed to be that. But once that transition happened where the arts became public and in schools and a business, then, yeah, the kata became much less valuable. And yet, I still think it's a very valuable training methodology if you do the work and have the blessing of good coaches who turn you on to this early on. And by the way, one other thing, if I can, I caught you taking a sip. Even in our, I could be wrong because I'm not technically like an Ed Parker, Kempo kind of guy, but they teach a lot of combinations, right? That's like their curriculum is built with all kinds of cool, fancy sounding names and hammers and wings and all kinds of stuff. And the high-level guys that I've talked to in that art say to me that, yeah, you learn all of these combinations. You have to memorize them. You go over them 100 million times. But the end goal, according to Ed Parker, was to then become improvisatory. Then you're supposed to go with the flow, put those pieces together any way you want to. So you learn these little short kata, you get these little list of ideas, a list of like a curriculum. Then you just got to fight. Then you got to flow and go for it. But to your point, most people don't have that much time. So they get stuck on the exercise and they never get to the part where they can just improvise and flow and create and put it all together. And that, I would say, is where something like Krav Maga or just forgetting about the kata entirely does make sense to me, because if you're not going to put the time in to put the value into each of those movements and figure out how they work, then it is a waste of time. I would rather that my mom, who's 72, say, Mom, you want to learn martial arts? You know what? Just go to Krav Maga. You're not going to learn any kata. They're going to give you some stuff. They're going to tell you to yell. Just start hitting stuff. Be aggressive. And if you're only going to work out once in your life, that's not a bad way to go. Do that. But if you're going to do this for the long haul and you're going to do it for a couple hours a day, then I think the technology of a kata then starts to make a lot of sense.
You do. So I would agree. If you're in it for the long haul, you should be learning good realistic techniques. You should never have your hand chambered over here. You should never chamber your kick, and everything should flow. So I agree with that. You should do real techniques. And if you want to call those combinations kata, then we do katas all day long. If you're doing stuff where your hand's over here and you're in a wide stance and you're standing there, then I think the time that you're spending could be better spent. I don't think you should just go one time. I don't think you shouldn't practice all the time. I go from white to black belt, and we don't ever see a kata from white to black, and so I think it works very well that way. But so I think the difference is we do our techniques, we do our drills, we do our combinations, we do all those things. I don't call them katas because to me they don't fit what a kata is. And the reason I don't use the word bunkai is, to me, everything we do, you know what we're doing. Like you can watch it in fucking the UFC the week before. Go, I just learned that technique. I don't have to come up with some kind of obscure technique that you're standing there doing, and then say, well, the bunkai, that means his head's over here and his legs over here, and I'm picking him up. You just know. I don't have to use those obscure terms. We do a double leg takedown. We'll do it. We'll drill it. We'll drill it. We'll drill it. But I don't have to say, well, why is my hands over here? They know what the technique is because they've drilled it and they've seen it. So we put those things together, and I guess the common ground we have is we put the drills together, we do the combinations, we drill with a partner, without a partner, on the bag, on the shield, on the paddles, etc. And we do the drills, but we call it drills, combinations, sparring, or whatever we call it. We just don't use the word kata. So I guess everything we do, I could say is a kata. Even we do a combination with a hook, we'll say, well, that's my kata number 4 with the left hook. So I could name it a kata, but in reality, it's a left hook.
I mean, to me, that's
actually didn't know. What?
I think what you just described is like, I mean, no one would ever doubt your skills or your credibility as a martial arts instructor. And what I think is interesting is that I think you, me, anybody listening, I know guys who I would consider like killers who believe in kata, and guys who I think are killers who don't believe in kata. And so ultimately, this is just one of these things. Either you found a way to make it valuable to you, or you did not. Some people will tell me, like, oh, I just love kata because it's such a meditation for me. And, I don't think that's the best way to use a kata, but I can't take that away from someone. It's like they're a killer in every other aspect of their training, and they're doing hard rounds, and they're pressure fighting, and they're competitive even, but they just like doing kata because it makes them feel good. Well, they're great. Okay, your kata has value to you. Different from mine, but good for you. So ultimately, this is always going to come down to finding your formula. And as a teacher, I just want everyone to be as honest as they can be with what their formula is. Make sure you're testing it. Make sure you're experimenting. Make sure you're open-minded, so you don't get caught up in delusion on this crap. But yeah.
So the difference is, I call it a combination or a drill, and you call it a kata. So it's the same thing. Everything you believe in, everything the same I'm saying, it's just you call it a kata. So okay, so here's my problem. Anyone that chambers their hands right here, I think they're doing a disservice to their students. So whether you call it a kata or not, anytime you put them in an obscure hand thing, and don't try to bunkai it, you should know why your hand's somewhere. Whether it's a double leg or underhooks or overhook, whatever, you should know where your hand is without leaving it out there and saying, well, the bunkai means this. You should just be flowing with it, and you shouldn't freeze there. So I just... Well,
now we're just talking about
the same thing. I think we're doing the same thing. maybe kata is different for me, and I see people like even as recent as this Olympics last month or month before, or whatever. I saw these movements, and I was like, why would anybody do that? That's a disservice to everybody at their school, unless people at their school want to do katas and know that they're not learning anything about real self-defense. They're just learning a nice dance move, which is kind of like breakdance or pop locking. So, I mean, that's what I feel.
Yeah, and I respect all of that. And I would add on to that just because kata got into the Olympics and people got medals, that does not represent the entire kata community. That's I don't practice competition forms. I don't even watch it. It's not something I'm interested in. There are people I respect who do, but that's their life, not mine. Those goals have nothing to do with my goals when it comes to kata. So I just want to be clear that it's just like there is no one, oh, this is how an MMA fighter fights. There's people within the MMA that have very distinct styles within that art. Same with kata. It's like some people just want to look great, be in shape, earn medals, maybe get to the Olympics. That's great. There's other people doing kata who actually sneer at that and go, those guys are fools. I don't practice kata for any of those reasons. They're wrong. So even within kata community, you're going to have people using it different ways, which just proves my point that it's relative. It's what you get out of it. And if you think, hey, man, that's a chamber for a punch and that's stupid, then great, don't do it. That does not have to be part of your training program. But if you're thinking, hey, that's a hair grab and I'm pulling this guy down, I'm hooking his arm so I can flip him over, well, then every time I do that, that feels like a technique to me and I can practice that with a partner. Okay, well, now you got your bunkai. Makes some sense. So, again, it's just going to come down to the value you put into it.
Yeah, so like the bunkai, the reason I get that pulling one all the time, and the reason I know that's not really, that's just an excuse that people use, is because a lot of karate guys actually start their sparring like this.
Well, I didn't. That,
so a lot of them do that. So to me, whatever they're doing, pulling their hair, pulling whatever they're doing, the large amount of the karate population right now, they're doing it wrong because they're starting off here. There's never a reason to start off here, ever, and they get you hurt. And that's one of my main problems is a lot of these techniques and a lot of these stances. That's one reason I don't like memorizing movements. I think that's really counterproductive in a real fight because it'll get your mind, boom, you get hit right there on the street, and now all of a sudden you're thinking, should I do this? 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 You know, that really bothers me. I want it to go boom. So that's one reason I don't like that. I think it's hurting people. And then, you know, and then we can call anything a kata. That's great. And then I'll have to be more specific on techniques and stances that I'm against, and not just. And the reason I'm against them, not because they bother me, it's because I feel like martial arts is very. It's like when there's bad instructors. I feel like you're getting your students hurt if you're doing certain things. One of them is chambering their hand here. This is this is probably the worst thing that's offensive to me. Because it can get people just, nobody can bring their hand up quick enough to block that. So and then when you're pulling someone like that, okay, then have them pull and bring their hand right back up. There's never a reason to be here for more than a split second. So to stand here in a stance.
How long do you hold a guillotine?
So this is a guillotine now?
Can it be?
Well, let's say it's a double spinning hook kick. We could say that in bunkai. You can't. You can call it whatever you want, but in reality, you're chambering your hand here.
No. Whose reality? Whose reality was that? Who said that's the reality? That's what someone chose. That's not my choice.
This is a guillotine. This has nothing to do with a guillotine. If their hand's here, they don't have a guy in the guillotine.
No. I mean, for any position where you see hands low, if you put any kind of lockup or different type of, it could be an arm bar, it could be a leg bar, it could be anything. Your hands aren't always up here because this is thinking like boxing. Once you got your hands on someone, you're doing whatever technique you want to.
This is thinking like real fighting. You don't want to get knocked out. Yeah.
In the beginning, but then you get your hands on the guy, and a lot of arts don't stop just here trying to knock. I can't stand with you and sit there trying to throw punches and bombs at you. That's a bad strategy for me.
Right.
So exactly now we're talking about.
So saying this is a guillotine, and then all of a sudden
No, not that.
now. So
No. I mean, there are hand positions where both hands are down. I'm saying, like, there are positions. The spirit of this would be.
And there's also positions in the kata where this hand might be here and this hand is here, and then all of a sudden you hit with this hand. So I mean, you could say it's
a
kata
separate.
What?
Well, like we were saying, if it's a list of techniques, it's not supposed to be connected. That's why there's stops. So here's the first idea. It's a guillotine. Here's the second idea. It's a leg sweep. Here's the third idea. It's a double leg. Here's the fourth idea. It's an arm break. It's a list of ideas. And again, I know not into memorization. That's cool. You don't have to be, really. Although we memorize the alphabet, it's just a system to say, hey, we're passing on language skills. So I'm going to teach you the alphabet. And here's the order. You can't say A, J, K, S, E. That gets confusing. Everyone's got, wait, did you say all the letters? I'm not even sure. We have a system, so we say, okay, you want to learn how to read and write, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is how you learn.
And that's a great analogy, because guess what? Missing, you got to think. You got to think sometimes, and kids are like, A, B, they think of their alphabet. You can't think like that the second somebody hits you. So you can't start thinking of the memorization and a chain of things.
But you don't. That's what I'm
swinging.
But every time you
start swinging.
Yeah, exactly. But every time that you speak, you don't say the whole alphabet. Once you know the alphabet, then you can start improvising and put the letters in the right order. It's very rapid speed to speak. Same with fighting. Once you learn the alphabet, then you can break it. That's what bunkai means. It means break it apart, break it down. Now I can break up all those pieces and use them as you would in a let it fly, just let it go. And as you know, I mean, in training, there are times when, hey, maybe your guy, like Rocky, right, he has to learn how to fight both sides. So maybe tie one arm down. You don't like this. This isn't how I want you to fight in real life. I need you to learn how to fight with a different lead for this fight. Okay, so you go through those drills, and it's horrible, and it's painful, and it's why this is backwards. It's not intuitive. But at the end of it, then you say, okay, whatever you learned, let it fly. If it stuck, it stuck. If it didn't, it didn't. This is just a way to train. So the same thing with
So that would be great. That would be great. I love that. Then you go there to take your test, as long as you don't hold them to a bunch of prearranged movements that have to be memorized, because you just let it go. You let it go. So you might teach them these movements, but then if they come out, they do it completely different. Most schools, I'd be willing to bet, if they don't do it in the exact order and the exact memorization, they're doing it wrong, and they're not going to pass their test.
Right.
So so if you're saying kata is just let it go, any technique, any combination you put in, we'll just call it a kata, then I'm kataing all day long from now on.
Yeah.
I call everything a kata because I love traditional martial arts, but I feel like kata has created a terrible thing for most of our students and our instructors, because it puts people, it made people traditional karate guys were never respected. Even when I was coming up in Hawaii, they were always the guys that were going to get their ass whooped, because they relied on memorization and stupid stances and stupid hand positioning, stuff that got them hurt. So traditional karate was never respected. They came out like this in the beginning of the UFC and just got knocked out over and over and over and over. So that was my problem. Memorization of technique should never happen. And I don't like stances that you teach somebody that they're going to do when they get jumped, and then they're going to get the kicked out of them in front of their girlfriend or their wife. And guess what? Guess who's not getting laid that night? Yeah, bang. Because they look stupid going in there like, boom. And next thing you know, she's going to be laughing at you. She's going to go home with the other guy.
Wow. I'm sorry, your wife has that character to leave you at your darkest moment.
Oh, you think? Yeah, so am I. But it's reality.
Oh, my God.
She would wait for me. If I ended up in a coma, she would probably wait for me a day. And then she'd be with a neighbor, Troy. But anyway,
oh, my God.
That's my problem.
Awesome.
I'm sorry about that. But anyway, so maybe my kata and my dislike or fear of kata, maybe it stems from some problems I have up here.
A fear of abandonment. I'm so sorry. This has gone deep now.
That's what it is. I really love kata. I love kata, but I'm scared of it because if I don't do it right, my wife's gonna leave me.
Right.
You're like a counselor, for God's sake. You're like the kata whisperer. That's what you're the kata whisperer.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I think we've come a long way today. I'm very happy.
Thank you very much. I gotta thank you for that. Everything has just changed in my life, my wife's life for sure, and the pit. We're going to be the KATAYA school anywhere.
I love this. I'm so bad.
So anyway, to be honest, I think we agree on more than we disagree on.
Yes, sir.
I think maybe a little bit of terminology, goes a long way. So I think we agree, for the most part, on the really hardcore traditional kata schools, they should lighten up a little, call them more combinations, put in a little more realistic techniques. I know you've cross-trained into a lot more traditionality on the side than you've cross-trained to more, you put the traditional with a realistic, like all the great fighters has, like Benny the Jet has, and Cecil Peoples has, and Fireboards Azak has, and most of them have. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Anthony Pettis, those karate guys have done their katas. Lyoto Machida loves katas. We went to dinner. We actually had dinner last couple weeks ago and talked a lot about that. And so we have different ideas about katas too. But I think we agree on more than we disagree on. And I'm going to continue, instead of kataing, I'm going to, I might start calling some of my drills kata just because I like the word kata because I feel more traditional. But I am going to keep my pop lock into my curriculum as well. Too much?
That's beautiful. I mean, look, right? Kata just means like form or a pattern, a kind of way of doing stuff. So you're doing kata, whether you call it that or not. I only ask. I guess my only takeaway would be my hope for you. My hope for you to live a happy life without the frustration.
Too late.
My only hope would be that when you see someone doing a kata and they're really into it, just take them aside and say, can you tell me what you're thinking about on one of these moves? Let me pick a move, or whatever. Find the craziest move and say, what are you thinking about here? And if they come back with something that and everybody would know, like, oh, yeah, that's pretty dicey. I don't know, that's going to get you killed. Then you know what their level of involvement is with kata. And you can say, so why do you do kata? Oh, I just get out of the house 3 times a week. It makes me feel good. Okay, now I know. Thank you. But I'm just suggesting that there's a small percentage of people. I'm not saying this is rampant. You're right. I think a lot of people misinterpret the kata, and they use them. They could get more value out of them. I'll say that. I think you might be surprised when you talk to people, like, a lot of these guys out there nowadays. There's more and more of the practical karate guys. When you ask them, hey, what's that crazy move you're doing there? What are you thinking about? You might be surprised that they go, oh, it's this. And you're going to say, holy crap, that's in my curriculum. We have that move. And then the world comes together, the rainbow appears, a dove flies out, we all sing together, and share
Kumbaya! Kumbaya!
KATAYA! KATAYA!
I think we solved it.
I'm going to get a t-shirt that says KATAYA. We're all coming together.
My God. I can't even believe I'm saying this right now. Kata. I'm a kata. I'm like a kata guy. I'm going to be that guy.
You're the ultimate kata guy, and I mean that with love from my heart.
Well, thanks for this. I think this was I knew this would be fun, but I didn't know it would be this fun.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. For anybody who doesn't know, Sensei John Hackleman is a fantastic teacher and a very spiritual guy. So if you haven't trained with him at the pit, drop by, give him a call, let him know you're in town. He's a fantastic host. He changed my life, gave me a very nice welcome mat, showed me a lot of things, and gave me a perspective that I needed. So I will always be grateful to Sensei John Hackleman, and I continue to be. Thank you so much, Sensei.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Have a great day, everybody.
Hard. Don't let anyone take your lunch money. I'll see you guys. Thanks, Ando.
Amen.